And we're rolling. Okay, today we're talking about building muscle. Muscle building is something I've been interested in for a long time because I was always skinny. I was a wimpy little kid and I wanted to get bigger and stronger so that people would stop bugging me, I guess. That was how I got into fitness. Building muscle is about three main things: workouts, nutrition, recovery. Workouts are probably why you're here. Other stuff, not as fun to talk about, but we'll get to it because we have to. Working out. So you can do a lot of different things to build muscle in terms of exercises, type of equipment, things like that. But what really matters is the amount of tension you put on the muscle for how long and the amount of fatigue you can induce. So if you're lifting a weight that you could, let's say if I had a gun to your head, I wouldn't do that. But say somebody's really forcing you to go until you can't physically move it anymore. You could do, let's just say 20 reps that way. And you only get to say 10 or 12. You are really far away from that point of failure. And the research shows that going to failure is one of the biggest drivers of hypertrophy, getting the muscle bigger. So whether you use lightweight or a moderate weight or a really heavy weight, doesn't matter as much for building the muscle as going close to failure. So what do we do with that information? You can basically train with any rep range you like, as long as you go to fatigue. But keep in mind that your pain tolerance will be a factor. So it can be tough to go to failure with really heavy weight because of safety issues. Say you're doing anything. It could be a bicep curl. Why not? And you're trying to lift in the 5 rep range to failure on a bicep curl. That's a lot of stress on just one joint and one muscle, basically. Maybe a few muscles, but there's not a lot of room for error in that. So as you're straining and you're trying to get that muscle to fatigue, you're working with a very heavy load. It can be dangerous because a slight shift in your focus or your technique could result in an injury. Maybe even more so with a compound movement like a back squat, where there's a lot of different moving parts and you have to organize your entire body to do this task of squatting up and down. Small lapse in your concentration could mean your back rounds slightly or your knee moves in and then you hurt yourself. Easier to do with really, really heavy weight if going to failure. I'm not against lifting heavy or training in the low rep range, but generally I would only do that for strength and leave a rep or two in the tank so that you can be safe. And that works really well for getting stronger. Now, let's go to the other side of the spectrum. If you're going to do really lightweight and try to do lots and lots of reps to failure, it starts off super easy, and then it's getting gradually harder and harder. And then it's now really burning. You're starting to really feel it, and you're still not there. You still have more reps in the tank, but you have to keep pushing yourself mentally to get there. So the problem with really, really high reps to failure is that it is extremely painful, and the mental toughness aspect, the discipline it takes to push yourself completely to failure over that longer period of time it takes to do the high reps can be difficult, and that can make it less effective. So that's why if you look at how bodybuilders train, who are, I would argue, the best at hypertrophy, the best at getting bigger muscles, because that's, most of what the sport is. Obviously there's, the posing and the nutrition aspect, getting lean, all that. But in terms of just like getting bigger, they're really good at that. And most of them classically train in that middle ground of, 8 to 12 reps for most things. And that works really well because you're not so heavy that you're going to hurt yourself. if form breaks down a little bit, but it's not so light that you have to do 1,000,000 reps and you just can't physically or mentally tolerate that prolonged set to where you can finally reach failure and you quit early because it's just so uncomfortable. So moderate weight to failure tends to work really, really well for most things. But the failure part is pretty important from what the research shows. Now, you can get bigger without going to failure. You can train with reps in the tank left, or it's called reps in reserve. You can do that and still get bigger, but it's potentially not as efficient. So if you're trying to get as big as you can, as quickly as you can, or let's say maybe you've been training for years and the training, the more conservative approach has kind of tapered off in terms of its returns, then you might have to pursue more aggressive strategies of pushing to failure, even doing more intensification methods, things like drop sets and forced reps and things like that. But going to failure, that's really important. Another aspect of your training is going to be recovery. So how often do you train? How much time do you give your muscles to rebuild so that you can do it again? Now, if you're training to failure, you're tearing your muscles down. They need time to rebuild so they actually grow bigger, get stronger, and can do another good workload in the gym so you can continue this process. If it's too often, then your body doesn't have time to build up and you end up just constantly tearing yourself down, getting weaker and smaller and not making progress, or sometimes even going backwards. If your workouts are too far apart, this is more of a problem for most people. We don't have enough consistency. We don't get into the gym often enough or train the same muscles and movements often enough. Then what we've done is we've created a stimulus for growth that goes up. We leave the gym, our body, I'm sorry, I'm doing this the wrong way. So let's say we break the body down, our strength level goes down, we recover, and then we come back up. There's a slight supercompensation. We come back a little bit above where we were before that workout. So a slight increase. But then we wait too long and our performance, our strength starts to dip again. And then eventually we get back in the gym and we do that again. So a lot of people repeat the same cycle of kind of rebuilding the same muscle over and over again. They keep trying to redo the same thing and without making upward progress. So consistency. How do we get the right dose? It varies from person to person. You have to learn to listen to your body and make sure that you can go to the gym when you are fully recovered. That takes some experimentation. But generally speaking, if you're working a muscle group 2 to 3 times a week to failure, for most people that are, like myself, a normal person, I don't get paid to work out. I'm, over 40 now. I have other things to worry about, other stresses in my life. I can't just be in the gym all the time. If you're 18, great genetics, super fit already, you might be able to get away with training a muscle group 4 to 5 times a week and still train to failure and still grow. And if you're sleeping a lot and your diet's on point, which we'll talk about in a minute. But if you're a normal adult with other responsibilities, I think most people, in my experience, from what I've seen as a trainer, 2 to 3 times a week per muscle group is pretty good. Now you could break that up into supersets. Not specific techniques. You could break that up into splits with, an upper lower split where you train your upper body on one day, lower on the next, and then, do that 2 or 3 more times a week. You could do push pull legs split is also really good. I don't think the old bro split of, chest and tries, back and bis, legs, abs, shoulders, or something like that really works for most people because the frequency for each muscle group is usually only maybe once a week, even though you're in the gym 5 days a week. So anyway, enough recovery for the muscle to grow, but not so much that it kind of re-rusts after that. Then the other thing is nutrition. Nutrition is going to be really important because that's where the building blocks for the new muscle come from, especially protein. Now, protein is the main thing we build muscle out of. You need to get enough of it. A lot of people know that, but they still don't actually eat enough. The general recommendation I give out to people based on everything I've read when I've gone through my precision nutrition level 1 certification is, a middle ground is like 3/4 of a gram per pound of your target body weight. So if you're a 200-pound person, let's say you want to be 200 pounds, but you're either trying to gain or lose. You want to be at around 150 grams of protein a day if you're at 3/4 of a pound, or 3/4 of a gram per pound. Hope I did that math right. And that can be hard to hit because not everything has protein. A lot of things have protein these days: bars, pastas, breads, but it can still be hard because basically you have to supplement it unless you're just eating insane amounts of meat every day. But that's not necessarily healthy for our colon, and you can get things like gout. So supplementing it, having a variety of protein sources from meat and eggs, dairy, fish, and supplements like whey or other forms of protein powder, whether it's plant-based or whatever, is really good for hitting those goals, but still staying healthy, keeping the sources well-rounded, and also not just burning out on eating the same protein source every day, whether it's, a lot of people turn to chicken, which is fine. But if that's all you eat, it starts to suck after a while. So getting enough protein, you need the rest of your diet to support your health in general too. Make sure you're getting enough fiber. Drinking enough water is huge, about an ounce per pound of your body weight per day. An ounce for every half pound. So if you're 200 pounds, drink 100 ounces a day. And then you'll have good metabolism, be able to flush things out, and overall you'll be healthy. Eat fruits and vegetables, get your protein, and you'll be good. The last thing, I know this video is probably going long, the last thing I want to talk about is recovery. This is the thing that's the least sexy, the least fun. So we saved it for the end. But most people don't rest enough. We're out of the gym for enough time. Sorry, I had an alarm set. Most people don't rest the way they need to rest. They don't really recover. So what I mean by that is they don't sleep enough. Main thing, sleep is so underrated, so powerful, because that is when you really build your muscle. If you're only sleeping, 3-4 hours a night, good luck build muscle, or even just not getting sick all the time, because your immune system is not going to function right. Your brain's not going to work as well. You're not going to think as clearly. It's going to be hard to push yourself to do anything. And you're just not going to be able to build muscle like you should if you're not sleeping, because that's when it happens. So sleeping has to be a priority. And that is hard, I think, for a lot of people, more so than really pushing themselves in the gym, which can be kind of fun once you get used to it, but when you're, at the end of the day, you've had all these responsibilities and you just want to have some me time, and you want to stay up and scroll some reels before bed, and then you realize, oh, damn, it's 2 a.m. and you got to get up at 6 to get ready for work or whatever. That's not good. So you have to discipline yourself to just stay in the habit and the mindset of, I need to prioritize sleep. Get 8 hours, at a minimum 7, but really shoot for 8 every day. It's going to be huge. And then movement is recovery. Gentle movement, honestly, walking is probably the simplest and best thing that we can do, because you don't want to just be sitting on the couch or laying down all the time when I say rest, or just, sitting in your desk or in your car going to work. Between your workouts, either on the same day or between those workout days, you still want to move your body in a gentle way to keep it healthy. Don't let the body rust and get stagnant, and let the muscles tighten up and lose your range of motion in your joints. And gentle movement improves the circulation to the muscles, helps them recover. So walking around, step goals of 10K a day really are about maintaining general health. It's not about aerobic fitness or being, a dynamo at the High Rocks competition or whatever. It's about maintaining basic function of your cardiovascular system so that you don't um, so you don't have a heart attack, I guess, and you don't lose your ability to move stuff through your body that needs to get moved. Not just the blood, but all of the stuff that the blood carries in the lymph, the lymphatic drainage. You need movement for that. So anyway, those are the main things. Workout, push your muscles to failure with moderate rep range, generally speaking, moderate load. Nutrition, get enough protein, get your fiber, eat whole foods, fruits and vegetables, get enough water, and sleep, and prioritize recovery. I hope this has been helpful. If anybody actually made it to the end of this video and watched it, let me know in the comments. And I hope this helps somebody. So you guys have a good weekend, and I'll see you in the next one.